There's a term that Joseph Campbell coined. It's with respect to the evolution of mythologies, and he termed it mythogenesis. So I want to take a kind of mythogenetic point of view with respect to this material. I want to show how it evolves over time. I want to situate it specifically within the context of European culture, and I want to stress, emphatically stress, the emphasis of the Grail mythology as the mythology that is uniquely the Northern European mythology, the mythology of the individual, in contradistinction to the mythologies that were imported to Northern Europe from the Near East, the Levantine myths of Christianity and Judaism and Islam, where the emphasis in those religions is on membership in a community, in a consensus, with a revealed text to which everyone is supposed to agree. And if there are any heretics, we'll go around stamping you out to make sure that you don't dissent. That is a specifically alien mythology that was imported into Northern Europe by force. And so what I want to do is emphasize the origins of the Grail myth and situate it within the context of European tradition. So the first point I want to make with respect to that is this notion of Arthur. Arthur, as you all know, was an actual historical personage. Nennius speaks of him in his chronicles as a dux bellorum, that is, a soldier who was trained by the Romans to fight the invading Anglo-Saxons. And he was probably, his personality was probably somewhat closer to the kind of warrior hero that you find portrayed in Braveheart than to the kind of king that you find portrayed in Excalibur. The Braveheart character is probably much closer to the authentic Arthur. So Arthur was said to have been slain in the Battle of Camlan in 537 AD, and he was said to have been victorious in a series of 12 great battles. 12, of course, is a mythological number, so we shouldn't get too rigid with that. So, but the point that I want to draw your attention to open this up sort of backward in time, is to play around with the etymology of Arthur's name a little bit. The name Arthur, if you'll look on your packet after the map, the first picture, there's an inscription that I want to draw your attention to that dates from the 1st century AD, during the Roman period. It was found in the Pyrenees, and it says, Lexea, daughter of Odon, has gained merit through her vows to Artehe. So here we have the name Artehe in circulation long before the coming of the historical Arthur. So we know then that Arthur was a Celtic divinity long before the actual personage of Arthur. And he indeed may have been named after this divinity, which we don't know very much about. But we may perhaps gain a clue to the nature of the divinity when we realize that Artehe and Arthur are etymologically related to Artemis, the Greek patroness of the hunt, and specifically there was a bear cult, I believe, associated with Artemis, and Arcturus. Arcturus meaning bear guardian. Arcturus is the pole star within the constellations of the twin bears, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, after which the Arctic is named. All of this stems from the Greek word for bear, Arctos. So the bear is the oldest worshipped deity in the world that we have any evidence of. It dates back to the Neanderthal period, 100,000 BC, in Europe, and we have evidence of caches of bear skulls in Europe from about the same geographical area that the Celts were said to have emerged from. This is in the Swiss Alps, the caves of Wilden, Manasluch, and Drachenmauer. So that's the first thing. And I want, in bringing up this connection with the bear cults, not to make any kind of suggestion that Arthur of the Round Table was in any way associated with bear cults. There's no evidence suggesting that. But just to kind of open up the background of Arthur and drop it back into the Paleolithic so that we get a sense that this mythology didn't just spring out of a clear sky. It has roots in Europe, possibly going back to the Paleolithic. So the next wave that we need to consider as the Neolithic peoples come in. These are the builders of the mother goddess civilizations of Europe that Maria Gimbutas has written about in her beautiful volumes on the goddess civilizations. And this period dates from about 7500 BC to about 4500 BC. These peoples were wiped out later by the Kurgan peoples, or the Indo-Aryans, who came in with bronze spear tips and simply smashed them to pieces. But the next wave after the Neolithic peoples in Europe are the Bronze Age peoples, and the Bronze Age dates from about roughly 3500 BC to about 1200 BC or so. And the Bronze Age peoples are the builders of Stonehenge. And Stonehenge, there are legends associating Merlin's name with the building of Stonehenge, but Stonehenge was built up apparently gradually between a period of about 2000 BC and 1200 BC. Apparently there was originally a wood henge there, which has long since decayed, and there were offerings made there. Infants were found buried in the ground there, and all sorts of neat stuff. So that's the Bronze Age peoples. Now the next peoples to come in are, of course, the Celts, and these are Iron Age peoples. And they're part of the Indo-Aryan patriarchal waves that were seeding the earth from coming down from north above the Caucasus mountains. And the Celts originated supposedly in Bavaria, 1000 BC, the Hallstatt peoples. And then these were a lumbering battle axe people. They carried huge iron implements, battle axes, and they had a whole mythology of thunder-hurling deities and all of this stuff. They come into Europe from the mountains of Bavaria about 1000 BC. The next Celtic wave is a much more culturally sophisticated wave, 500 BC, the Latine Celts. And these were said to be the Celts that invaded Rome in the 4th century BC and nearly stamped it out of existence. And the Romans hated them deeply for it. And so there's a long period of, the Gauls were more or less to the Romans what the Persians were to the Greeks. There's a long tradition of mutual hatred and hostility swinging back and forth through the stages of the culture. Then after so we have the Paleolithic traditions possibly originating with the Bear cults, the Neolithic civilizations of Greece and Asia Minor, the Mother Goddess cultures, and we have the Bronze Age peoples coming in about 3500 BC, building Stonehenge around 2000 BC. The first wave of Celts, 1000 BC, the next sophisticated wave, the Latine people, 500 BC, and then the Romans come in. Claudius, I believe it was, who was said to have conquered Britain in 43 AD. And then after Claudius, we have the Christian missionaries. And I believe that the Celts were Christianized by the 4th century. About 313 AD, the first missionaries began pouring in. We know because Pelagius, the famous heretic, was a Celtic Christian sort of monk who migrated from Britain to Rome. And his dates are between 360 and 420, something like that. So we know they were definitely Christian by that time. So, and then after the Christians, then that brings us to the period of Arthur and the struggle with the Anglo-Saxons, because the Romans pull out of the British islands, Britain itself in 410, to try to save Rome from the invasions of the Germanic tribes who were just coming in and pummeling the place to nothingness. The Romans left, and they left behind this warrior chieftain, Arthur, who had been trained by the Roman ranks how to fight, and he became a kind of folk hero for the Celts, who actually invited the Anglo-Saxons to come onto the island to help save them from tribes who were coming down from the north, the Picts and the Scots. They invited the Celts invited the Anglo-Saxons in, and Hengist and Horsa came in 450 AD, responding gleefully, and took over most of the island. But the areas that the Anglo-Saxons did not go into were what is Campbell terms the Celtic mythogenetic zones. These are Cornwall, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, and then ultimately Brittany. Now Brittany, you'll see on your map, there's a little peninsula that juts out of northern France. And it was during this period that a lot of scholars believe that there were Celtic immigrants across the water from Wales to Brittany who landed there after the Anglo-Saxons came in and brought with them their stories of the folk hero Arthur and began to mythologize this notion of the return of Arthur and the resurrection of Arthur. He would return from Avalon and liberate them from the Anglo-Saxon conquest. So that brings us then to the period of the Anglo-Saxons, who succeed in conquering most of Britain, as I say, between 450 and 550. The next